My brother was always the favorite. Now my parents expect me to take care of them instead. I learned young that in my family, love was not unconditional. It was transactional, a currency measured in importance, in who was worthy and who was less than. And in our house, there was never any doubt about who held value. It was Ethan, the golden child, the chosen one. My brother, the one my parents doted on, the one they praised, the one they invested in while I was left with whatever remained. From the moment he was born, he could do no wrong. If he got an A on a test, it was proof of his brilliance. If he failed, the teacher must have been unfair. If he made mistakes, they were excusable. If I made mistakes, they were proof of why I wasn't good enough. Ethan is going to do great things. Ethan is our pride and joy. Ethan deserves the best. And me? You should be more like your brother. Why can't you just listen? Stop being so difficult. It didn't matter how hard I worked. No matter what I accomplished, it was never enough. Straight A's? Expected? Getting into a good college? Not a big deal? Landing a well-paying job? Well, Ethan's doing even better, isn't he? Every achievement I had was treated as less than. Because in their eyes, I was less than him. I should have been bitter. Maybe I was. Maybe a part of me always would be. But mostly, I accepted it. I stopped seeking approval that would never come. I built a life away from them, a life where I was my own person, where I wasn't just Ethan's shadow. And it worked. Until one day my parents called me, and suddenly, the son they had never truly cared about was the one they needed. It was a Tuesday evening when my phone rang. I almost ignored it. My parents weren't exactly the type to check in on me unless they wanted something. But for some reason I answered, "Hey, Mom." A pause. Then, "We need to talk." I frowned. My mother's voice wasn't its usual clipped, impatient tone. There was something else woven into it, something I couldn't quite place. "Okay. About what?" "It's about your father and me. We're not doing so well." I sat up a little straighter. "Not doing well? That was new." "What do you mean?" A deep sigh. "We're struggling. Your father's health isn't what it used to be, and money is tight. We need help. Help." The words settled over me like a suffocating weight, and suddenly I understood. Ethan was gone. The golden son, the one they had worshipped, the one they had given everything to. He wasn't here. "What about Ethan?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Another silence. Then, bitterly, "Your brother isn't answering our calls." I nearly laughed. Of course he wasn't. Ethan had spent years enjoying the life they built for him. They had paid for his education, supported him financially, bailed him out of bad decisions, covered his debts, and never once expected anything in return. So why would he start caring now? "So you're asking me," I said, my voice steady, cold. "We don't have anyone else," she admitted. "We need you." They needed me. The son they ignored. The one who had never been good enough. And now, after all the years of neglect, of making me feel like an afterthought, they wanted me to save them. I could have said no. I should have said no. But instead, I agreed to meet them. I told myself it was curiosity. Some twisted part of me that wanted to see them weak, to watch them grovel, to hear them admit that the son they had abandoned was now their only hope. When I arrived at their house, I almost didn't recognize it. The once pristine home, the place they had always taken such pride in, was now falling apart. The paint was chipped, the lawn was overgrown, the front steps creaked under my weight, and inside, they looked small. My father sat hunched in his chair, his once imposing figure reduced to frailty. My mother stood beside him, wringing her hands, her face lined with stress. This wasn't the powerful, demanding couple I'd grown up with. This was desperation. "Thank you for coming," my mother said softly. I didn't respond. I just sat down, arms crossed. "Tell me exactly what you need." She hesitated, then carefully. "We need financial help. Medical bills. The house. Just enough to get us through. Enough to get them through. Because Ethan wasn't coming back. The son they adored had abandoned them. And now I was supposed to pick up the pieces. I exhaled slowly. "You want my money?" You want my help. But tell me something. Why do I owe you anything?" My mother flinched. "We're family." "No," I interrupted, my voice sharp. "We're not. Not in the way that matters. Family is supposed to be about support, about love. And all my life, you made it clear that my only role in this family was to exist in Ethan's shadow." She looked away. "I gave up on earning your approval a long time ago," I continued. "I built my own life. I survived without you. And now, after all these years, the only reason you're here, asking me for help, is because Ethan left you behind." She didn't deny it, because we both knew it was true. I stood, pulling out my wallet. My mother's face brightened for a second, until I dropped a single $20 bill onto the table. "That should be enough for dinner." My voice was flat. "It's more than you ever gave me." Her eyes widened. "You can't be serious?" "I am." I turned to leave, but she grabbed my arm. "Please," she whispered, voice trembling. "We need you." I looked down at her hand, and then, with a quiet, final certainty, I said the words I had waited my entire life to say. "You needed me before. You just never cared enough to notice." I pulled free, walked to the door. I didn't expect peace after I walked out of that house. I knew better than that. My parents had spent years molding guilt into a weapon, sharpening it into something that could cut deep enough to control me. They weren't about to let go of that power so easily. So, I wasn't surprised when the call started the next morning. I ignored the first one, then the second. By the third, my voicemail was full. My mother's voice tight with anger. My father's silence in the background just as heavy as his disappointment. "I don't know what's gotten into you. You think you're proving something? You'll regret this." Then finally, a new tactic. "This isn't about us. This is about your father. He's sick. He doesn't have much time left." A low blow. I clenched my jaw, staring at the phone, feeling something curl in my chest. Something that wasn't quite anger, but wasn't guilt either. I should have cared. I should have felt something. But all I could think about was the years of neglect. The way my father had ignored me, unless he was comparing me to Ethan. The way he had dismissed every accomplishment, every moment I had tried to earn his approval. The way he had chosen Ethan over me, over and over. And now, after all this time, I was supposed to care that he was sick? I exhaled slowly. No, I wasn't falling for it. I had spent my entire life begging for a love they would never give. Now, it was their turn to beg. A week passed, a week of silence from me, and a week of increasing desperation from them. At first it was just phone calls, then texts, then messages from relatives. "You need to be there for them. They're old. They need help. Ethan isn't stepping up, so it has to be you." That last one made me laugh. It has to be you. The entitlement, the sheer audacity of it. I had spent years being treated like an afterthought, an obligation, a disappointment. But now that Ethan had abandoned them, I was suddenly important. I knew Ethan had cut them off. I had known for a long time. He wasn't answering their calls, wasn't responding to their messages, wasn't playing the role of the perfect son anymore. And I wanted to know why. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I called him. Ethan answered after 2 rings. "Well, well," he said, his voice dripping with amusement. "Didn't expect to hear from you." "I need answers." "Of course you do." I could hear the smirk in his voice, the cocky, easy arrogance he had always carried. The thing our parents had loved about him, the thing they had fed. "They're calling me," I said, "begging me to help. But you're nowhere to be found. Why?" He sighed. "I told them years ago, I'm not their safety net, I'm not their retirement plan. And guess what? Neither are you." I clenched my jaw. "That's not what this is about." "Isn't it?" he asked, voice sharp. "They used us. Both of us. They just did it differently." I blinked. "What are you talking about?" A pause. Then, something I had never expected. Ethan hesitated. "You really don't know, do you?" he said quietly. "Know what?" Another silence. Then, finally, the truth. "They lied to you," Ethan said, his voice flat. "About everything." I gripped the phone tighter. "Be specific." "About me. About why they treated you the way they did. About why I left." I said nothing. He took that as permission to continue. You think I had it easy? Because they paid for my education? Because they gave me everything on a silver platter? A humorless chuckle. They weren't giving me a good life, little brother. They were controlling me. I stiffened. They wanted a puppet, Ethan continued. Not a son. They paid for my school, but they picked my career. They gave me money, but they expected loyalty in return. Every decision I made had to be theirs. Every success I had was really theirs. I wasn't their golden child. I was their investment. I swallowed hard. And you, he continued, you were their backup plan. They pushed you away because they didn't want you to get ideas. They didn't want you thinking you had power. They needed you to feel small so you'd never try to take my place. I felt something sharp settle in my chest. And then I left, he said simply. I cut them off. I told them I wasn't their property. And the second I did, he let out a slow, bitter sigh. You became Plan B. My stomach twisted. Everything, every moment of my childhood, every rejection, every dismissal, hadn't been about me. It had been about control. They had kept me small because they needed someone to own. And now that Ethan was gone, they were coming for me. So, what are you going to do? Ethan asked, his voice calmer now. Are you going to let them use you the way they used me? I closed my eyes, took a slow breath. No, I heard his grin. Good, then stop answering their calls. And I agreed with my brother, because he was right. I had spent years feeling like I had failed them, like I had never been good enough. But the truth was, I had never been supposed to succeed. I had only been meant to serve. And now, that life was over. The next day, my mother called again. I let it ring. Then my father, then my aunt, then my uncle, then every single person they could convince to guilt me back into their grasp. I ignored them all. Until finally, one last voicemail. If you walk away from us now, don't ever expect to be part of this family again. I played it twice, then deleted it, because I wasn't part of their family. Not anymore. I listened to that final voicemail one last time, letting the words settle over me like a familiar weight. If you walk away from us now, don't ever expect to be part of this family again. It was supposed to scare me. It was meant to be a threat, a final warning, a desperate last attempt to control me. But all it did was confirm what I already knew. I had never been part of their family. Not really. Not in the way Ethan had been. Not in the way a child should be. Because love, real love, wasn't supposed to be a transaction. It wasn't supposed to be conditional. It wasn't something that could be given only when convenient and withheld the moment it was no longer useful. They had never truly loved me. They had needed me. And now that I wasn't willing to be used anymore, I was disposable, and that was fine, because I was done needing them too. I didn't answer any more calls after that. I didn't respond to texts. I didn't check the family group chat that had suddenly exploded with opinions about me. People who had never cared about me before, who now had so much to say about my selfishness. Because that's how it always was. The people who had ignored my existence for years now had the loudest voices when it came to judging my decisions. But I let them talk, let them gossip, let them complain, let them whine about how I had turned my back on family. Because I had finally realized something. The only thing I had turned my back on was being their backup plan. And if they wanted to waste their time trying to guilt me back into submission, they could waste it alone. A week passed, then another. I half expected my parents to show up at my door to try and force a conversation I had no interest in having. But they never did. Because they knew, they felt it. This time, I wasn't playing their game, and they had lost. Ethan called me once during that time. You actually did it, huh? He said, his voice somewhere between approval and amusement. Yeah. How does it feel? I exhaled slowly, looking out my window, watching the city move around me, a world I had built on my own. Like I can breathe. Ethan laughed softly. Took you long enough. I smirked. Yeah, well, I guess I'm a slow learner. Maybe. But at least you learned. I didn't say anything after that. Didn't have to. In our lives, we actually understood each other. And for once I didn't hate my brother. Because he had been just as trapped as I was. He had just escaped sooner. I wish I could say that walking away was easy, that I never looked back, that I never had moments where the old guilt tried to creep in, where the voice in the back of my head whispered, "You should have helped them. You should have been the better person." But I was done being the better person. I had spent my entire childhood trying to be someone they could love. I had spent my entire adulthood trying to earn something that should have been freely given. And now, I was spending the rest of my life for me, not for them, not for Ethan, not for anyone but myself. And it felt damn good. Months passed before I heard about them again. It wasn't from them directly, of course. They had stopped trying. They knew I wasn't coming back. But through other family members, through whispers in passing, I learned the truth. They lost the house. The medical bills piled up. The money dried out. And when they needed someone to blame, there was no one left to turn to, because Ethan was gone. And now, so was I. And my parents finally understood something. They had spent so long treating me like I was nothing. And now, they had nothing at all.